Alright, I'm Mike with iPhone Rehab, and I have a mail-in repair today from Delaware. Looks like it's Rachel's phone, and she says that the issue is iPhone 7 audio IC chip. And here's some of the symptoms. The microphone's not working. It's unable to make, receive, or answer voice calls, and the voice memo is not working. So let's set this aside, and this is actually, it's nice, came in the original box, iPhone 7 128 gig. And we'll set that aside. And because it is the coronavirus thing that's been going on, it's got a little bit scary, so I've been carrying my Purell, and I don't like using those gloves. They say that it just passes it from one surface to another surface, so I've been using a lot of hand sanitizer, wipes, and that 99% alcohol. I bought a case of that before all this happened, and so I was set up good with that. And I've been wiping down my devices using the 99% alcohol when they come in. Okay. Might seem like a little overkill, but I'm not taking any unnecessary chances when I got the stuff right here to help minimize risk. Alright, so let's see. Let's get it plugged into an amp meter. I just see what the charging circuit looks like. And here, I'll move my camera down here so you can see. So we just got the boot and pulling almost a full amp, right at an amp. So it's pulling correctly. We'll see how long it takes this thing to boot up. Usually it has really long boot times on these. I'm trying to think of the best place to get that camera. Yeah, that'll work somewhere in there. Alright, so it took a little bit to boot, not much. And let's just do a pre-test on everything. So first thing, we'll go to the dial pad. Okay. That's just a white screen. So there is no dial pad. Actually, it just crashed. So no dial pad, just a blank white screen. Let's see, camera. Oh, I don't have a front camera or a back camera. The internet can't open, your phone's not connected. Okay, so let's go to Wi-Fi. And I know this, my camera has a built-in infrared on it, and it's not gonna probably focus too well on these. I could probably kill some of these lights. Let me see here. I'll do my overhead light. And Wi-Fi. It's off, grayed out. So I can't turn on Wi-Fi. See, the camera is black, does not work. Let's go to the phone pad. Just a blank screen. So let's see. We're gonna go to trying to think. Audio, voice memos. It let me push the red button, but it doesn't do anything. Let's go. Oh, I know what I want to look at. Let's go back into settings and let's look under general and about. And it's just freezing on the about. It's not going into it. Alright, so let me plug my light back in. And if you can't see it on the screen, I'm just going to tell you what I'm looking at to make it a little easier. So, first thing, let's do a hard reset. So this is the 7. We want to do volume down in the power button. Pretty sure that's it. Wait for the Apple logo. There we go. It's showing it's pulling about an amp, 1.2 amps. It is taking a little longer to boot this time. There we go, I just felt the vibration. A little bit of a flash there. I'm going to set this down. I'm going to grab my TriStar tester. And it just shows devices connected. So I'll click on the quick test here. And it says it passed. So we know it's not TriStar. Charging port. I didn't think to look at what the battery was charging at. The percentage. See, it just did a little flash there after a really long boot. But it just booted a minute ago. But with no cameras, no dial pad, you can't get into the about phone. There's no Wi-Fi. Actually, the phone has something else going on with it, or multiple issues, or I don't know that I feel much heat. And it just went black and powered on again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this my pre-test video, and I'll make this part 1. I don't know if I'll splice them together on the repair, but I'm just going to have to stop this video because I want to send this to the customer before I open up the phone, just because this doesn't seem like just typical audio IC. It may have started with audio IC, but there's something else going on, and I'm not sure what it is yet. So we'll have to diagnose that together in the next video, part 2. But thanks for watching as I did the diagnostic to this. Oh, well, look at this. That just came up to the home screen. Well, let's continue this for just a moment or two because I want to see what else happens. The screen just died, so let's hit the home button. And it comes up. Let's hit the camera. Now look, the camera's working. And there you can see the camera. Alright, so camera's working. Let's go to the dial pad. Now we have it's showing. So let's go star #06#. I'm getting my device IMEI. Let's go into settings. General, about 128 gigabytes. Got my Wi-Fi, my Bluetooth, my IMEI. I'm going to take a picture of that with my phone unless something happens to this NAND. I'll need that to reprogram a new hard drive if this hard drive is beginning to fail. And I don't know that that's what it is or not. It's just, that was pretty weird. It wasn't wanting to boot. I have modem firmware. There is no SIM card, so let's see. What else can we tell? Oh, let's go check our audio now. Or, no, Wi-Fi first. Wi-Fi is not connected. Now it's turned on. There it goes. It gives me my Wi-Fi. So I'm going to put in my password. It connected to my Wi-Fi, so let's go to Safari. Cannot open page server. Let's just go to Google. Google.com. Alright, it went to Google, so let's type in the word test. Search. Tests. There are not enough COVID-19 tests. Speed tests. So yeah, the internet's working. Let's see, what else was there? Let's go to calculator and check screen rotation. Screen rotation works. Let's go to voice memo. Voice memo is not working. Let's go to compass. The compass appears to be working. So there's an intermittent issue going on. I don't know that audio IC would affect all of that. I know there's a lot of 1v8 lines. Well, let's take a look. We're going to go to display capture. And this is the audio IC. We're looking at the iPhone 7 Qualcomm. I don't know that this is Qualcomm, but I know there's not a lot of differences right through here, but there is one of these lines is in 1V8, there it is, SD RAM 1V8, which goes to the power supply, goes down here to Homer, goes to NFC, it's over here under Wi-Fi, it's under everything. So we could be having an intermittent 1V8 issue besides this audio IC. I'll tell you what, we're gonna do the audio IC repair. I still have this under video. That's what I was hired to do when audio IC isn't working. And we'll see if we get any more intermittent issues with anything else after getting the audio working, if we can. And what I'm thinking is it's going to be C12 here. So zoom in. The typical audio IC repair is one of 4 or all 4 jumpers here along this line. So we'll be looking at C12 is the likely culprit, but I'll check out these other pads and take resistant readings. And if all pads are good and all the resistance is good, I won't run a jumper if everything's good. And I'll just clean the pads, reball the IC unless it's actually fractured and came away from its pads. So let's go back to the camera. Turn off display capture. And we are still at 1.107. I don't know that I want to try another reboot. 66%. Power it off. So it did boot up on me a couple of times, and that one time it just took forever, and it's like it was having an issue booting, and then the cameras weren't working, Wi-Fi wasn't working, internet wasn't working, the phone pad wasn't working, the about section and settings wasn't working. So we'll see if we can attribute all this to just an audio IC repair, or if there's something deeper going on. But again, it was sent to me as an audio IC, and I agree there's something going on with that audio IC, but I don't know if there's something else going on or not. So the only way to know is we open it up and we check it. So first thing is a couple of pentalobe screws here on the bottom that are missing. So somebody's actually had this apart before. Let's take a look. Suction cup. There's not a lot of adhesive there, so it's definitely been removed before. There's some adhesive there, it's just not very sticky because I'm not needing any heat to loosen that adhesive. Let's see. First thing I'm looking for is water damage. That sticker hasn't been tripped. I don't see any corrosion. Can't tell if those battery tabs don't look original, but I don't know, the battery could have been replaced. It's still an original Apple battery, or excuse me, an Apple LCD. I don't see a lot of signs, pretty clean. But I wonder why it was open before, if it was just, if battery replacement was done. I'll have to remember to ask her that. So Next is we just need to remove these shields that hold on the LCD and the battery and the front camera assembly. And those are all the tri-points. These are two little Phillips up top by the rear camera and the front facing camera flex. Light's just doing nothing but shining on it to make it harder to see what I'm doing. I don't think it matters a whole lot. If you're watching a micro soldering video, I'm sure you've removed the logic board before, but I'll still go ahead and take my time for people that may not have. So let's see, we're going to remove that shield, and that's for the LCD and home button, and then this shield up top for the front flex. And then the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect that battery, just in case there's power flowing anywhere. I want to make sure that it's dead so I don't short the backlight circuit or some other circuits in these flex connectors as I'm connecting and disconnecting them. So we remove the LCD. Next step is let's remove this logic board. So I'm going to disconnect the flexes that are here, which is the battery we've already done, the charging port, the antenna cables. There's two of them down here by the LCD connector. And then you got the rear cam. And another little tiny one right there at the corner of that rear cam. You know what, I'm going to look at that one under my scope. Let's turn on the scope. So this is that rear cam, and then right here is another little one. I'll just get careful because I don't want to cause pry damage. I just want to get it unplugged there. There we go. And now we're going to go to the shield for the volume power button cables. Disconnect that cable. Now we need to disconnect the Wi-Fi antenna. Okay. Let's eject that SIM card tray. Oh, there is no SIM card tray. Okay. Should have looked at that earlier too. So, no SIM card tray. Then let's go to the other screws that are holding the logic board down. And then there's these standoff screws. One of them here. And there is another one here in the, see, we're at right here by this camera. And there's a couple of them down here by the charging port assembly. There's the charging port flex cable, and down by those little antenna wires at the bottom of the board. My magnet doesn't want to work. And then one more down here. And I am pretty certain that's everything. So let's put my screwdrivers back in their little stands. And we'll use one of these little spudgers to lift up the logic board out of its housing. Oh, actually there's a little tab here from the SIM. Move it out of the way for the SIM tray. There we go. We got the board out. See, this back shield has been removed before. Let me see. I'm gonna move this over here. So this has had previous repair attempts. And this paper is just floating back here onto the back. So that wasn't even adhered. And that is where the audio IC is located. And there is flux. Homer has flux around it. Audio IC has flux around it. So somebody has worked on this audio IC before and has had heat on this board before. Let's look. Got a foam pad there. Usually that foam pad, when it's on the board, it looks melted when they've applied heat on the other side, and I don't see any signs of heat other than a little bit of flux. Maybe somebody just tried to do a reflow, low heat. But if you see the board here, there's visible flux right there on Homer. In the audio IC, you can see the swirls of somebody trying to clean up a previous mess. The sticker was removed. Nothing around NFC. PMIC. Alright, well, we've noted that there was a previous repair attempt, and I don't offer a warranty on previous repair attempts or a guarantee. But I'm pretty sure I'll be able to figure this out. I'm just concerned about everything else not working. Usually it's just the one issue you see with this audio IC. You're needing a jumper and repair, and voice memo doesn't work. But this time it had some intermittent issues, and you all seen the different intermittent issues I was having. So let's get a good pair of tweezers. Let's get some flux. Oh, and this is the Intel version. And all I'm going to do is just add a little bit of flux right around here, so it goes up underneath that IC. See how these tweezers are going to fit fine. Now we need to shield off the areas that I don't want heat on. So I just use a couple of coins, and I'm going to mask off the edge here so the hard drive doesn't get heated. And then on the other side for the PMIC to protect it. Then we're going to put the hot air station right around 360 Celsius, 380 Celsius, 30 to 40 air. I've got mine on, let's see, this is 380 and 30. Well, it's actually 716 Fahrenheit and 30 air out of the 120. And I might want to bump that air up because I want to get this off a little quicker and bump up my heat just a little bit, just a few degrees, because baseband sits up underneath here and I don't want to reball baseband if I don't have to. Let's get the heat going down here. Should be coming any time now. it's a calibration issue. I just calibrated this station last week. There it goes. Oop, I bumped that one. I'm not going to keep the air on it, but I bumped this one too. I'll get that one back up underneath there. I just don't want to leave too air on there that long, because baseband being there, I can create bridges. So get that off of there. A little bit of flux down here. I just want to remove some of this old solder off of this chip. Mix in some new solder as I get ready to reball it. Just hold it still. I get a little bit of solder on the end of this. Just bubbled up, and I'm just letting that bubble drag across the IC chip to mix in with that existing solder. That way it just sort of makes fresh solder on the board there. And let's get some alcohol. Toothbrush. I'm just gonna clean up all that flux off of there. Okay, so then we clean up the IC, and then we can reball it, put some fresh solder back on those pads. So find us a stencil. See, and this is the A10 right there. A10 meaning the A10 processor. And then we'll look for am I going to the wrong one? I am. Or am I? I just had it sideways. There we go. That is it. I'll just get a clearer picture there. And you can see that the template fits right over where all those little pads sit. And what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of some solder paste and squirt it there, and we'll just fill in all those little holes. like pretty good. Alright, then we're gonna get a pair of tweezers to hold that still. And then let's heat it up and reball it. There we go. I think what I'll do is just add a tiny bit of flux. Hold it still. Just in case any of them shifted a tiny bit. There we go. Yeah, a couple of them did shift a tiny bit. There we go. Now they're just free floating there. We'll clean that up with a brush and some alcohol. Alright, we'll just move that IC chip off to the side. So once we do the repair to the logic board, and put that back on there and test it. Now let's go back to these pads. Okay, I've got one cap that I need to put back on its pads. Alright, just clean these pads up. Just add down some flux. And all that solder takes such high temperatures to melt. I like to just mix in a little bit of low melt solder. Oop, I gotta clean these tips. Yep. You can see that third one that we talked about earlier, it just came right up. It wasn't even attached to its pad anymore. And what I'm doing, I'm just mixing in some low melt solder with this existing solder on the logic board, so when I go to apply heat, I don't have to apply a bunch to get this cleaned up. trick is just getting enough of this low melt solder to flow near the tips of the soldering iron instead of in a ball just right above the tips. That way you can get a really good mixture. Yeah, it is. And there's another pad that just came up. Those are probably NCs. There's several of those. Alright, so just add a little bit more flux down here. Get some solder braid. Usually it just doesn't take much. You just barely brush it by touching the end of the soldering iron to the braid, to the desoldering wick, without putting a lot of pressure on the board, because you don't want to tear live traces that go to other vias throughout the board, where basically all we're trying to do is just mix in some of that low melt solder that can be sucked up without much temperature. There's one that I missed. That one's still got the higher temperature in it. Didn't get a lot of low melt there. I think that's good. Just clean that up a little bit. I wonder if I can grab hold of that capacitor. You know, I might be able to. Let me try that real quick. Get me a flat blade screwdriver. I'm going to lift up this shield and just bend it up a little bit to make room for my soldering iron tips. To grab hold of him. There we go. And I'll get a pair of tweezers and my hot tweezers as well. So we grab hold of it. Started to come there. Get a better angle. There we go. I need more coffee. That was a joke. Haha. No, I just get one side down. Like that. Good. And then when I put the hot air down to put my IC chip, that should flow and fall right back on its pads where it needs to be. So now let's just clean up the board a little bit. And I like to use, in this particular scenario, I'll use a little bit of acetone on a Q-tip and that'll absorb a lot of this flux, and I'll clean the rest with alcohol. But I just want to get, what I do, I knocked off, I thought I had that capacitor sitting there steady, and I guess I didn't. I just knocked it somewhere. There it is, I see it. Okay, let's get my tweezers. Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to adjust this the microscope height so I can turn that board a little bit. There we go. Where is he? Well, I thought he was in there. Well, I can pull one from a donor board. I just don't want to leave a capacitor just laying there and short something else out. I can't tell if that is him. Okay, so I'm just going to lift that part of the shield up and get to it. Right here. So right underneath here somewhere. Is that him? No, that's not him. What did I do? I knocked him somewhere else? I'll be. Is he on the board somewhere? Maybe he already fell out. No, that's not it. I don't see it right this moment. I'm just going to continue doing what I was doing, and I'll just throw that cap back on there. We'll see what it went to, and then I'll pull it off of a donor board. You can see now that foam. Remember at the beginning of the video I said usually you can tell when heat's been applied because it shrinks up a little bit like it did. So it hadn't had too much heat applied, I don't think. For whatever reason, they had flux around those. But I don't see my capacitor on this side stuck to anything. Double check this side one more time. I just don't want it stuck up underneath one of these edges and ground or short something out. I should have just moved it once I had hot air put back on the board. It would have been easier. I thought I was being efficient by doing it then, and I wasn't. Okay. We need to get our jumpers going. So we need to look at these pads and see, and just triple check. We want to make sure they're all NC. They're not connected to anything. I'm going to look at those under the schematic. And this for an Intel board, well, to be the same as, but I'm going to look at the Intel board anyway. So let's go to our display capture. Go back to ZXW, and what we're looking for are blue pads to match ours. Here, we get a good count. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one down on the far left, and then the sixth one down in the second and third columns. So the fifth one down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's NC, and then the sixth one down in the second and third columns are NC. So that is correct. Then we have the fourth one over, and then these bottom two. Fourth one over, and then these bottom two. So 1, 2, 3, the fourth one over, blue, and the bottom two, NC, NC. So the only one we're left with is the one that we originally were looking at before we even moved the IC, is this third one down, and we need to run a jumper to here, and this is a very common issue with this model. So let's go back to our camera. And this guy here needs to connect to that little resistor. So we're just going to put a little bit of a jumper wire here and solder it to this wire, and then when we put our IC chip back on the board, it'll remake that connection that it's missing now. And just to poke around some of these other, because some of these, there's 4 of them. This one, and this one are the other 3 that sometimes do that same thing. And I'm going to actually use my multimeter, and I'll make sure that there's a good connection between here and here, here and here, here and here, that there's no issue there. But this is the reason we had no audio issues, was because of that missing pad. What happened was the pad was just sitting there floating, but it tore away from its trace here, not making a solid connection to the board. Okay, so let's just get that jumper in. The first thing I need to do is just scratch a little bit of the solder mask that's covering the trace. just a little piece of jumper wire. And what I'm using is just this 0.009 millimeter superfine silver jump wire from Mechanic. I got too long of a piece. There we go. Let's get another pair of tweezers. We'll get that jumper right around there somewhere. Put down just a little bit of flux. I think that's good. Clean it up and take a look. Looks like it's on there. I don't know how well, but I'm going to cover that with some solder mask. Give me a different blade for my knife. It's a good solid connection. Okay, we're good. Now I just need to, let's see, we'll just cut it right here. Leave a little bit sticking out. Get that other piece of the wire out of there. There it is. use a little bit of this green mechanic solder mask, UV light. UV light solder mask, that is. Put a drop down there. Use a tip of my knife blade to dip up some. And I'm going to put it right on top of that jumper where I soldered it to the board. Actually, it looks like I got quite a bit on there. I don't want too much. There, I got a little bit on that side, and that'll work. There we go. Now we'll take a UV light, let that stay on there for a couple minutes. Let's make a mess if I don't put this stuff back up. UV light, and we will cover up that mask to dry, and then we'll take our IC chip and solder it back onto the board, and that should be our fix. I'm hoping so. It was all those other intermittent issues that worried me a little bit. We'll just give that a couple more minutes and you'll be able to fast forward through these slower parts. But I like to show you everything that I experience and what I go through. That way if I run into an issue or a problem, well, somebody else might run into that same thing and they'll know how to avoid it or how to fix it should they come across it. So almost like that cap. I'm going to have to replace that cap that had got knocked off. I'm sorry, I know this part is boring, but I should have done this while I was reballing my IC chip. I didn't think about it. It's close. It's not there yet, but it's almost there. We're going to call that good. Basically that solder mask, it just has to hold that wire still because I'm going to be applying temperatures back to the board again that's enough to make that solder melt on that jumper. And that solder mask is there to hold that jumper in place so it doesn't float away. So we do really want to make sure that the solder mask is cured around it so we don't lose our trace, because that is the repair. Okay. I believe that will hold. So next is we need our tweezers again. And another tool, we just need to try to give it some surface area inside of that pad where the old pad used to be. There we go, we got it to bend a little bit. With that, that'll work. Doesn't have to be too pretty, it just has to be functional. There we go. That way when we put that IC chip back on the board, the solder melts right over the top of this jumper wire and makes its connection back to that resistor where it needs to be. And I need to get me another cap to put there real quick, so let me grab a donor board. This is an iPhone 7 Intel. And I think either one of these will work. That's heating up. Let's dab this a little bit of flux right there. A little bit of fresh solder on these pads. Back to our donor board. Let's grab the cap that we need right there. Clean off those tips a little bit. Just sit. Then let's put some more flux back on the board. Oh, it's not flux. I've made that mistake before. Where's my Q-tip? flux here on the board. Gobs, I just need enough to make it wet and stick. Actually, I need to clean that. I can't see where there it is, A1. So A1 goes in that back left corner. I think that's pretty close. Let's see if we can angle it. Look underneath and see those solder balls, where they line up with our pads. See those two right there in that corner? They are almost dead on. This bottom corner, so I could probably come towards me just ever so much, and then we'll take a quick peek after that. Too much of a gap right in here, so we need to get back on this side of it and just bump it that way just a little. I seen it move. I don't know if that was enough. That may have been. I think that was it. Let's lay again. Actually, that doesn't look bad. I'm okay with that. So there's a place to start. And then we want to put our shield back on. Again, to protect our hard drive, our NAND, and our PMIC mainly. One way to tell is you can watch that solder here near that capacitor that I had pulled off of the other board. We're just waiting to watch it melt, and then we'll know that you'll also see the IC chip drop a little bit and maybe adjust itself. as the solder becomes molten. But I like to watch the caps around the edge, and if I see that they've given way and that solder is melted, then the solder underneath the IC chip isn't too far behind. There it goes. I think that is molten. It is. Okay, so that cap is on there nice. So now I'm just going to go to the edge of this chip and just barely touch it. Just to make it jiggle, float. And then if it was stuck anywhere, it helps settle it down on the pads it needs to be sitting on. Set that aside. That should be the repair. You need to fix up the frame a little bit, and I'm going to use my multimeter, and I'm going to check for shorts on the capacitors around Homer, around PMIC, or baseband PMU, and audio IC. Make sure we didn't end up with another issue before we apply voltage back to the board. Just let it cool for a moment. Alright, so let's get our multimeter out. And looks like something froze. Deactivate that camera and reactivate it again. There we go. I don't know where that stopped recording, but hopefully this camera was still going good. I'll go back and look at the video just to make sure it's going to be useful in any way. So I'm just putting my multimeter in continuity mode to start with, and I'm just basically going to put one side on ground, and then I'm going to check each side of each one of these caps. I just don't want to hear it beep on both sides of the cap, because one side's ground, one side is rail on most. Which is a good sign. The baseband did not get floated and cause a short. Homer's not shorted, and audio IC is not shorted. So I'm pretty confident that as long as I got that IC molten and floated on top of its pads, and it made the connection with that jumper. We're good to go. So let's fix the shield first. So if it does work, we can set it back down into its housing and put a little pressure and just not too much to where it causes a short and grounds out against any of those components or slips and fractures that glass IC. Alright, that looks good. Let's clean it one more time just before flipping it over, so if it is done we don't have to pull it out, just to clean that off. Just a little bit of alcohol. Okay. LCD. Next, we want to add power, get it to prompt to boot, and then we're going to check out our amp meter, make sure that we're still at a good 1 amp. We are. You see the phone is booting. Hopefully it boots up and doesn't do what it did on that one glitch. I just heard it vibrate, so there it is, it booted up. And then let's go to the phone pad, star pound 06 pound. We got an IMEI. Go to settings, general, and about. We have modem firmware, IMEI, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. Everything is there. The volume button. Go to voice memos. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It did record, so let's see. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, that worked. Let's go to compass. And the compass is working. Let's go to screen rotation is working. Let's go back to the cameras. And let's see, the front camera is working. I might not have plugged in that front, but I'll have to double check that rear camera. I don't see an image, but we weren't working anywhere near that circuit. Let's just check. I don't have a flashlight either, so rear camera, flashlight. There might be something else going on with it, but we'll double check and take a look at it. But again, that was like working on the windshield and something happens on the bumper. They're on two different sides of the board. It appears that everything is working fine. So I'm going to call this a successful repair, even though I do want to look at that rear camera and flashlight issue. And it is plugged in. So let's look. Camera. We had a glitch with that before, but if the front-facing camera is working and rear-facing camera is not, we'll just continue to troubleshoot that. But we got our audio back, so it's a usable phone. Everything else is working. I'll take one more moment because I just want to look at that rear camera. Unplug power. Let's unplug the camera. Plug that camera back in again, just to make sure we had it where it needed to go. It was plugged in correctly. I'm going to check that camera one more time on film. If not, I'll continue to troubleshoot rear camera. Booted back up again. Yeah, rear camera is not working and flashlight's not working. But everything else, home button, everything else appears to be working. So I got to troubleshoot the camera, but we do have audio. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Everything working except for that rear camera and flashlight. Everything else is good. I'm not getting the intermittent issues with anything else so far. I am getting a little bit of heat. Whoa, look at that. Getting heat from that flashlight. Unplug it. That's all it was, is that? See, it's cooling back down now. Let's look at that rear camera. The flashlight's working. No, rear camera's not working. And flashlight is giving me an intermittent issue. So we're going to look at that. We're going to call this a successful repair because we were hired to take a look at audio IC, but I still want to look and see what's going on with camera and what circuit it's causing it, if it was a blown filter, if it's an LVO, if it's a bad camera, and it's just a separate issue than what we were experiencing before. But with it working intermittently, and you see the flashlight just came on out of the blue, those are both tied into the same LDO, same 2.85 volt circuit, and we'll look at the 1.8, 1.2 filters, and I don't know that I'll post a follow-up video on that repair, but I will touch base with my customer so she can see what it took to get that camera going. But for now, just thank you for watching, and you have a great, safe life.